After choosing empowerment over dread, I began searching for meaningful and effective solutions to put into practice in my own life. Progressive Hedonist is a podcast to share the ways we can take on climate change through food and joy. On days when this seems completely impossible, this podcast is a reminder that each of us can make an impact. I'm Dana Cowan. Join me in conversations with thought leaders like Alice Waters, Andrew Zimmern, Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, and more. We can learn together what is possible. You can listen anywhere podcasts can be found and join the conversation on Instagram at progressive_hedonist.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Heritage Radio Network is proud to be sponsored by Hearst Ranch. The Hearst family has been raising cattle on the rich, sustainable, native grasslands of California's Central Coast for over 150 years. Piedra Blanca Rancho in San Simeon is the original Hearst Ranch, founded by George Hearst in 1865. And George's son was the famous publisher William Randolph Hearst. In addition to being known for building the iconic Hearst Castle, William was, like his father before him, an avid rancher. In his words, "I would rather spend a month at the ranch than any place in the world." Thanks to one of the largest land conservation easements in California history, a joint effort with the California Rangeland Trust, the American Land Conservancy, and the state of California, the working landscape at Hearst Ranch will be preserved forever. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com. I'm Lou Bank.
And I'm Jordan Tepper, co-founder of Apolog Liqueurs and Host Cocktails.
And this is Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Green Gex bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. So you make a lot of agave spirits. Isn't that right, Jordan?
We don't make a lot of agave spirits.
Yeah, I'm just messing with you. So I saw online, I think it was on LinkedIn, that you had posted about an article that was in Food and Wine. Am I getting this right? It was Food and Wine?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, yeah. So it was U.S. craft distilleries are in crisis. And in fact, you don't make agave spirits, but you are making craft spirits in the U.S.
That's right.
Are you in crisis?
We are in a bit of a crisis.
Okay, talk to me about that. What does that look like? Because I think that there's a lot of overlap between what you're doing here in the USA and then what so many of these families in rural Mexico are doing, which is not to suggest that they're necessarily trying to make craft spirits for a market, but rather that they're trying to preserve something that's more art focused than commodity focused. I think that's what you're doing.
Yeah. I think, it's multiple factors are at play. There are things like higher inflation, higher costs and wages, higher costs of capital. But really the biggest thing stems down to distribution.
Well, so before we even get into distribution, tell me about your line. What is Apolog? What are you doing?
Absolutely. So Apolog started as a line of all natural liqueurs. These are liqueurs, think things along the lines of Aperol and Campari, but we are only using real fruits, roots, herbs, and botanicals in our products. Everything that's in our package is on our package, so all the ingredients are listed, and they're often used by bars and restaurants to help elevate classic cocktails. So we make things like a persimmon liqueur and a saffron liqueur.
Oh. And is there a legal definition of a liqueur?
There is a legal definition of a liqueur. It is required to have a certain Brix content, a sweetness over a certain level to be considered a liqueur.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't know what that is offhand, do you?
I think it's 2.5, but don't quote me.
Well, we're actually quoting you right now. Anyway, so you make a bunch of these liqueurs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're trying to find a market for it in the U.S., and you are in crisis because of distribution. Is that what you're saying?
Again, it's a combination of factors, but distribution is the hardest one that's pinching our business the most.
And when you're saying distribution, just to be clear, we're here in the state of Illinois. Are you outside of Illinois as well, or just?
We are. We distribute our liqueurs to about 20 states, and our host cocktails ship to about 46 states. And so we do operate. Illinois is our home market and our largest market, but we are in a number of other markets. I don't know if you've gotten into how the 3-tier distribution system works in the U.S.
Or rather how it doesn't. In some places it's 4 tiers.
True.
Yeah. So why don't you put a fine point on that? And I get that it's going to be hard because yeah, and this is another problem, right? Is different rules from one state to the next makes it really hard when you're a small business.
For sure. It's like 50 different countries. That is the equivalent of entering the United States or operating in the United States as a small craft spirit producer is 50 different countries, and that's how you should think about it.
Wow, so we should have like an EU here.
For when it comes to alcohol, each state is uniquely different.
Oh man. And is there any other product that's like that?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm sure there are in regulated industries. Cannabis is probably one example.
Yeah.
But it's pretty unique. Cannabis in some ways is following alcohol, unfortunately, in this way.
You know, I was having this conversation with Eduardo Anales down in Santa Catarina, Minas, Oaxaca. So, you know, he's La Locura is his brand. And Lalo, I showed up with a bottle of that empirical Doritos spirit that they've made, which I absolutely love. And I was bringing it around to Mescaleros to taste because I thought that would be funny. Get a little audio of them tasting it and getting their reactions. And Lalo wouldn't even taste it. He was nervous about what might have been in the Doritos. And then he started asking questions about, okay, so like how many, like they open 1,000, 1,000,000 plastic little bags that they threw into the trash. And like he started thinking about the impact that it would have in his community if they attempted to make Doritos spirits in Santa Catarina, Minas, Oaxaca, right? And that led to a conversation that we had about why things look so different in the USA around craft spirits than they do in rural Mexico. And the point that he brought up was, you know, he helped, not even helped, he led this project where they built water reservoirs in his community. At the time, initially it was like 49, and now I think it's up to like 150 of these, where they capture water so that they constantly have a water source even in years of drought. And what he said to me was, you know, it's our community. We can do what we want. But if we try to do this in the USA, they would have to go through so much red tape. They'd have to go through so many bureaucrats to get approval. And the bureaucrats who are going to say yes or no don't understand the impact, the way to do it, the engineering of it in the way that he does. And so his point is he thinks, and this is a large extension of what we just talked about, but he thinks that that the spirits market in the U.S. is largely commodified because of regulations.
I think it's a fair point. I mean, we're sitting in a building that's our future production site that we have been stuck working through red tape for over 2 years to get open.
Has it been over 2 years?
Over 2 years.
I thought I just visited you a few months ago.
Yeah, but it took us 18 months just to get the initial building permits.
Oh my goodness. And when you're saying it's taking that long to get building permits, is that because you have to wait for people to show up? Is it because there's like a long waiting list for people to get? What is that?
I think it's a combination of multiple factors. One is the Department of Buildings being understaffed, but I think a bigger issue is just familiarity with the type of business that we are. The city of Chicago has over 150 breweries in here, but less than 10 distilleries. And we are even unique within the type of distilleries that are in Chicago. And so getting their minds around, a concept that they're not as familiar with, and making sure that it is safe for everybody, which obviously we want it to be, has taken them a significant amount of time and has certainly added additional complications that if someone really understood the manufacturing and production and bottling of spirits might not actually be necessary.
Huh. Okay. And so in their, so I see a couple of complications here that I think are important, right? So one piece of it is by forcing you to go through this red tape in order to have your own facility to not be, because right now you're using someone else's facility.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So in order to reduce your costs, I'm guessing, by having your own facility?
So for us, honestly, it's more about providing a consumer experience, being able to actually have people come and see what we're doing and be able to have a cocktail at our production site. And the second is to be more dynamic and fast and flexible so that we can, if we have an idea, we want to bring something to market, we're not dependent on someone else's facility to do that.
Okay. So like all of this becomes additional cost to you. You've had this facility now for 2 years. You've just been spending money, not making money. And that makes it really difficult to stay in business. But that's not the only complication of your business as a craft distiller in the U.S.
That's correct.
Okay. So then what's the other complication?
Oh man, so many complications. The other big complication is on the distribution front. We've had multiple different distributors that have been acquired, and now we're part of a much larger distributor, or we've had to leave that larger distributor to go find a smaller distributor because we're a small emerging brand. And if you're a large multi-state national distributor, you are going to prioritize large international multinational brands, because that's what pays the bills of your staff, not the small emerging brand that's going from 50 cases to 100 cases to 200 cases. You're looking for the Tito's that is moving 200,000 cases. And so finding the right distributor fit for a small emerging brand is becoming increasingly difficult.
And I would imagine too, if you find that small distributor who can pay attention to you, that small distributor has issues trying to get the attention of the restaurants and the liquor stores and the bars, and has these minimums, the orders that they have to meet. And if I'm a bar, I'm a restaurant, like it adds yet another vendor that I have to be thinking about as someone I'm going to owe money to, which complicates my life. So it's not like it's even simple. Oh, we just go with the small guy. Even that's got its own complications.
For sure. Yeah. Unfortunately, the small guys have the drawbacks that you mentioned, higher minimum orders. Sometimes accounts don't want to have 7 different distributors that they're ordering from. So it's all about trying to thread the needle to find the distributor that's large enough to already be in the accounts that make sense for you to be in and have the ability to service you, but it aren't so large that it doesn't make sense for them to pay attention to your products.
God, so I think about this in the context of these families that I visit in rural Mexico, right? For whom, what they would call mezcal is cultural heritage. It's literally something that they drink at church. It's part of their religious fiestas. And in order for them to continue their traditions of making these spirits, they have to have access to agave and to water and to workers oftentimes. And all of those resources are being scooped up by multinational companies and even not like even just small brands starting their own mezcal companies and going down and taking control of those resources, which means in a way, these families have to find a way to play in that, whether it's as a provider for one of these brands, or literally just working for the brands, or figuring out how to get into the market themselves in order to access the resources to continue their cultural heritage, right? So I think about the trouble that you're having as a guy in Chicago, right, who's grown up in this market, and you're still trying to figure out how to get your piece of this market. And now think about yourself, 1,200, 1,500 miles away in the middle of a desert, not even understanding what this market looks like. And it makes me realize that makes me think about the fact that we've got these restaurants and these bars that really are, when you look at their food, they're trying to do something that's artful, that's unique, that tells a story, and they want drinks that do the same thing. And there's a whole system that brings those drinks to them that interferes with their ability to do that.
100%.
So what do you do?
Well, I mean, I'm working on the legislation side. I think it is time. Just met yesterday with the Deputy Governor Andy Minar to try to make some progress on this front. I think it is time that a lot of our laws were created post-prohibition, and we lived in a very different time post-prohibition than we do today, where people expect things to be able to be delivered to their door, where you have the ability from a compliance standpoint and a security standpoint to do things with technology that you couldn't do back then. And so, I think it needs to happen from multiple different facets in terms of consumers and businesses and producers, educating essentially lawmakers and other stakeholders in terms of kind of getting with where the times are going and being able to supply things that people are interested in.
So I had a conversation a few weeks ago with this guy, Morton Coach. Morton, he's like us, he's a gringo, but he started this mezcal brand. So the brand is Mezcal Chulele. Roy, can you just jump into his quote, please?
No, we actually on purpose, I've gone a different direction. I said when we were originally working through this, I said I don't want to be one of the many spirit labels that have died on the highway to market. We can't survive producing 1,200, or 1,000-liter batches and try to go to distribution and try to win friends and try to get in front of people and get in bars and retail points. We will never succeed. So it's straight to the consumer, because I don't want to deal with all the, relying on key people that have so many other products to sell, trying to find, a little love where there is, not much, and competing in a vast, space that is just daunting. So, and, we won't succeed. So it's direct to consumer only. Looking to build a community of people that really like what we're doing, like our products, want to be on the adventure, and experience what comes next, and to collect the bottles. Like they're unique. They won't be produced again.
It's great in theory. It's very challenging in practice, and that is because of regulation. In the U.S., again, on a state-by-state basis, it's all a little bit different, but for the most part, they operate in a 3-tier system. So if you're a producer, you need to go through a distributor and a retailer in order to reach your consumer, even though your consumer would prefer to buy directly from you.
Well, but there are a number of options now for direct-to-consumer, and I feel like it's a little gray right now.
Very gray.
Yeah. But I know a number of people who are doing it, but then they've got, so here, I got this other quote. Well, this is an audio quote. You can sit down, Roy. I was just reading an article in the Spirits Business magazine, called "Could Independent Bottlers Transform Rum?" And this guy, Peter Holland, who's a rum expert, and he's the UK brand ambassador for Foursquare. So he says, they got a nice quote in here from him, but the last bit of it is, they, and by they he means these new brands that are popping up who are bottling rum from small batches. They're not going to realize that it doesn't matter how good your product is or how nice it looks. It's getting in front of people. That's the toughest part. And, I think about that in the context of, certainly it's in your context as a spirits owner, as a brand owner, but then I think about it in direct to consumer, and how do you even get in front of those people? How do you find those people that are such a niche in this larger market of spirits consumers? Yeah.
So 2 things. One is, what's nice is now today with technology, where these enthusiasts, these communities tend to find each other. Whether it's on Reddit or Facebook or WhatsApp, there's these groups that are very tight knit and can share information. So if you really do have a very high quality product and you can get it in front of the right people within those groups, you can start to get a little bit of groundswell. I do want to go back a little bit on the direct to consumer front, because the gray area that's operating in today, while the consumer feels that's direct to consumer and you are able to build a relationship, 99% of those are not direct to consumer. Those are going through all three tiers.
Right.
And so it still provides a lot of complexity, but it does give you an avenue to at least have a direct connection to your consumer via email or message.
But you're still slicing up that pie. The price that the consumer is paying isn't going all to the brand owner or the producer. Right. It's still going to some retailer who is the licensed authority to ship, and that retailer had to buy from a distributor, and there's probably an importer in there somewhere too.
Yep. So I can give you an example. Our most premium, highest price product, our Host Gold Fashion, retails for $150. We sell it on our website for $150. A consumer goes to our website, they buy it, they feel as if they're purchasing it from us. We only see $90 of that.
Oh,
$60 of that is going through the chains of distribution in order to get that to the consumer. And if the consumer gets a package that comes and it's broken or late, who do you think they blame? They don't blame the retailer. They don't blame the distributor. It comes back to us, even though it had to go through those layers to get to them, which makes it challenging and expensive to operate in that DTC, using quotes, environment.
Oh, that's really interesting. Hang on. I like all of that, but just to put a fine point on it, if it is broken, does that happen frequently that it's a broken bottle?
It happens a lot less frequently today than when we started doing it in 2021. So early in the pandemic, we were earlier in this, quote unquote DTC, and we were doing a decent amount of volume, and we were having a lot of issues with that. Now, the retailers have gotten more sophisticated in terms of how to do this, and we've gotten more sophisticated in terms of finding the right retail partners that we know we can count on and trust and will deliver things on time. But during the Wild West of the pandemic, every retailer was saying they would ship.
Oh man, that's so fascinating. Okay, so then if I'm a consumer who wants beautifully handcrafted liqueurs, and coincidentally I am, that are made from actual ingredients and not just chemicals that, well, actually, I'm a big fan of the circus peanut. If there's a circus peanut liqueur and that's 100% artificial, I'm all over that. But then I also want that, you said persimmon, right?
Yeah, make a persimmon liqueur.
I want the persimmon liqueur. So how do I support that?
So for us, you can buy through our website, apologeliqueurs.com. I promise you, we are only getting a fraction of the $40 bottle cost for our liqueurs.
But at least you're selling it.
But we're selling it. And the nice thing for us is now we can start to build a relationship with you as a consumer. So if we have a one-time release or we're coming out with a new product, we can actually let all the people know who've bought from our website before, hey, we've come out with something new. Versus before, if everyone is just buying our product through a retailer, we have no way of letting all those people who've bought it at these various retailers know at the same time, hey, we have a new product, or hey, we have a new release. So it at least gives us the ability to communicate with people, or if you have questions, to reach out to us and ask, which is nice. The other thing is supporting the bars and restaurants that use our products. At least for us, for Apolog Liqueurs, a disproportionate amount of our volume is going through these bars and restaurants. So if you go in and you see Apolog celery root on a menu, it's a good sign that it's a high quality cocktail and a high quality place serving it.
Celery root? You've got like celeriac as oh man, I don't think I've tasted that. I need that. Okay, so all of that is cool, but then, you started off talking about lobbying in essence, right? Lobbying would you say the deputy general of
the deputy governor of Illinois,
deputy governor of the state of Illinois. Is that something that you promote to your customers, that, hey, please send a letter to, what was his name? I should know this, but
Andy Menard.
Andy Menard, save more money at Menards. It's like send a letter to Andy saying, hey, we want to be able to we want the makers of beautiful spirits to have easier access to the market so that we have easier access and broader access to more beautiful spirits. Change the laws. Here's the law we want changed. Is that a thing?
It is. There is a campaign, direct. I'm going to get it wrong, so I got to go back.
Take your time. Do you want, what we can do is future Jordan can give us a quote and we'll just drop it in there. Do you want to do that?
I'll give you the quote for that. But basically what's happening is we are collecting signatures both online and at tasting rooms at distilleries around the state that show that this is what consumers want. And to be honest, getting a significant amount of those signatures is much more impactful than 40 craft distilleries saying, hey, you should legalize direct to consumer spirit shipping. If you get 50,000 signatures, that starts to say something to the legislators that people care about this.
Oh, okay. I like that. So is there anything we didn't touch on that you think is important to communicate regarding the state of craft distilleries in the U.S.?
I will say if you are a passionate consumer of these brands, buying through their websites, while it feels direct and isn't direct, is still the best way to support the brands that you're doing. And so I think both supporting any direct consumer legislator or signups that people have and continuing to purchase, quote unquote, directly from the websites is going to be the most impactful thing for those small brands.
Or going to the place where they make it once this beautiful building in Pilsen in Chicago is open, right? I would imagine that that's then literally direct, right?
So yeah, that is at least again, every state is different. In the state of Illinois, the only place you can sell directly to your consumers is out of your own production facility, which is why at our production facility, we're opening a consumer facing element to it so we can sell directly to consumers.
And just to wrap it all around the idea of rural Mexico, the exact same thing for those guys. If you really want to support them, head down to Mexico, visit them, meet the families, and buy directly from them. And then they're getting 100% of the money. Okay, well, I guess, Jordan, unless you got something else, we're going to call that a wrap.
Thanks so much, Lou. Appreciate it.
Catch you next episode. Hasta pronto. You've been listening to Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Gringex bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. We're blessed with sound engineering by Roy Sierra and a theme song performed by Gabriel Oliveira and Marco Ricos. Sign up to become a road tripper and listen to more episodes at agaveroadtrip.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please let us know. And if you hated it, well, I'm sure you'll let us know that too. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Agave Road Trip. Agave Road Trip is a production of 10 Angry Pit Bulls, Inc. Agave Road Trip is powered by Simplecast. Thank you for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. To subscribe to the Heritage Radio newsletter, enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with Heritage Radio Network on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find Heritage Radio Network at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization using the power of educational storytelling about food to build a more equitable, resilient food system. Heritage Radio Network couldn't do that without support from listeners like you. Become a part of the world's most innovative community today. Subscribe to the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join the Heritage Radio Network family by becoming a member. To become a member of the Heritage Radio Network, click on the beating heart of our homepage. Heritage Radio Network can become addictive. Programming you hear on Heritage Radio Network might lead you to eat, drink, and listen to more programming on Heritage Radio Network. If you drink, please do not drink and drive. Drink responsibly, drive responsibly, eat responsibly too, and listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly. To listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly, wear protective earbuds. While wearing protective earbuds, do not drive, do not walk either. Sit in a comfortable chair. If that comfortable chair has a hard seat, please remember to stretch every 30 minutes. If you stretch every 30 minutes, please stay within your defined stressing capacity. And consult a doctor who specializes in stretching. If you don't have a doctor, maybe Dr. Ryan Acock, the Cocktail MD, can help you out. Thanks for listening. Agave Road Trip out.
Hey listeners, thank you so much for listening to HRN. We want to make your experience as a listener even better, and to help us do that, we'd love your input on our audience survey. It'll only take a few minutes, and by completing it, you can enter to win a $250 gift card from Goldbelly. Visit heritageradionetwork.org/survey to take the survey and to help us keep growing and improving. That's heritageradionetwork.org/survey. Thanks for your support.